Welcome to the McGregor Family Farmstead, where we enjoy working together to produce delicious, nourishing food on a budget. Today I'm going to demonstrate how I make my farmhouse jack cheese. It's just like a basic aged cheese. First, I pour off this morning's milk, which is about 2 gallons. And this jar of milk is almost half cream. This jar of milk is from my cow that is farther along in her lactation, so she's making a lot of cream right now. Now we'll be drying her off probably in about 6 to 8 weeks so that she can have a break before it's time for her to have another calf and to begin her third lactation. You want to be sure that the milk that you're starting with is high quality and that it was chilled properly and it's clean and all that. You also want to be careful about having things like sourdough or bread going on your counter in your kitchen because it's possible for the yeast to contaminate your milk, and yeasty cheese does not taste great. So you just want to be careful about that. If I have to make bread the same day that I'm making cheese, I try to keep both my cheese and my bread tightly covered and at opposite sides of the kitchen. I find that it usually works best to leave some of the cream on the milk, not skim it down completely. And of course, the milk from this morning is whole milk. If you make hard cheese out of skim milk that's 100% skim, it will be really dry and it won't be as tasty. On the other hand, if you use 100% whole milk and it's all separated already, you're probably going to end up losing a lot of your cream in the way. So we want all of our milk to be warmed to about 85 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on this burner onto medium-low. And I'm going to begin pouring all of the skimmed milk into this pot. And we have about as much milk as will comfortably fit into our large cheese pot. So it's around 5 gallons, give or take. And we don't want to fill it to the absolute top because that will make it difficult to stir. So it's been maybe 10 or 15 minutes and our milk is now warmed to slightly more than room temperature. I'm going to go ahead and add some organica. This is a mesophilic culture that works well in a number of cheeses. And I'm going to add just less than a teaspoon of liquid animal rennet. It's important to keep stirring your milk for about a minute after you add your rennet, especially if you're using whole milk. A creamier curd makes for a creamier, moister cheese. It's okay if some of the cream separates on the top, but you want as much of it to be incorporated into the milk as possible because you want your curd to be nice and creamy. And we will let this set until we get a nice curd. So in a couple of hours I will check back on it and then we'll be ready for the next step. It's been 2 hours and we have a nice curd that's pulling away from the side of the pot. So we're going to go ahead and cut our curd. And there's a beautiful pot full of cheese curds. So our pot is ready to be turned back on. We will go ahead and warm our cheese curds to about 100 degrees. We want to do so very slowly, so I have it turned all the way down on low. And I just gently stir it every couple minutes, whereas I have time, as I'll walk by and just give it a gentle stir. Well, it appears that our curd is about 100 degrees, and I've been slowly stirring it every few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and turn the temperature off and let the curds settle. Now our cheese curd has been settling for about half an hour, and I'm going to go ahead and pour the whey off and begin the process of salting our cheese curds. I'm going to begin by taking some of the extra weight off with this nice handy dandy ladle. That will just make it easier when I finally need to pour the curds off. It won't be quite as heavy. Now I like to reserve my whey to make ricotta cheese. So I'm going to pick up my cheesecloth out of my full pot and put it into my empty pot so it can finish straining in here as I am salting the curd. I'm going to begin the process of salting our cheese curds. I think that sometimes you can go wrong with making hard cheese is when you don't add enough salt to your curd, which makes it more susceptible to unwanted cultures and mold and just other things that will ruin your cheese or just make it not taste as good. I'm already getting a lot of whey in this pot, so I'm going to actually go pour more of the extra whey off here. As you're salting it, you want to incorporate the salt into the cheese curd, kind of tear the curd up some. Cheese curd is one of your favorite foods, Nehemiah. You being my quality control, helping make sure that I salted enough.
Go.
Oh yeah. I'm literally using tablespoons of salt. You actually want to add so much salt that it may start to taste a little on the overly salted side. That's usually, I find, when it's enough salt. Also, you want to be sure that you're using a non-iodized salt, such as canning salt or sea salt, because the iodine in the salt will kill your cheese culture. Mama's big helper. Now that I've salted our curds, I'm going to transfer them to the cheese press. You don't have to have a fancy cheese press to press your cheeses. This is our makeshift on a budget cheese press. The most expensive part was the cheese mold. Then we also bought this board and 4 carriage bolts. And this is just a tray, baking tray underneath for catching the whey. As you're packing your press with cheese curds, you want to try to distribute them evenly, sort of tamp them down gently into the corners. In the cheese mold, we just put the follower on. And we have the follower on. And put a little plate on top. Between this bucket of water and my weight, it's about probably 26 to 28 pounds of pressure. And again, usually later in the evening, before I go to bed, I flip the cheese once more and I put a fresh cheesecloth on it. So it's been a little more than 24 hours since we've been pressing our cheese curds, and it should be a nice, beautiful round by now. I usually only press my cheeses for maybe 18 hours, but this morning I had to go to town and get chicken, so the cheese had to wait. But it should be totally fine. We have beautiful rounded cheese. I would say that's maybe 3.5 pounds. Now I'm going to do a step that's called brining the cheese. We've had some batches of cheese that have turned out rather smelly from not being salted enough, and we've discovered that we get more consistent results when we allow our cheese to sit in brine for a few hours on each side. I'll let it sit in this brine for maybe a couple hours, and I'll flip it so that way it coats both sides. Our cheese has now been drying for about 18 hours since we pulled it out of the brine. This step is one that I honestly used to skip all the time, but I started to have occasional difficulties with getting vacuum sealer to work if I didn't let it dry for a bit in a cheesecloth. So I find that it's helpful to include that step. I usually check the cheesecloth about partway through the drying step to see if it's fairly wet with whey and brine, and if needed I will change it out. This is our vacuum seal rolls. You can cut a piece of plastic off to make a custom sized bag, so it's really ideal for cheese making. Alright, now that I've sealed one end of the bag with this seal button, I have put the cheese in. We are ready to vacuum seal. Be sure that you label your cheese, including the date that it was made. It's recommended that you age your cheese for a minimum of 60 days, as this helps to naturally pasteurize it while improving the nutrient benefits, and it really helps it to taste fabulous. Well, thank you for coming along on our journey with us as we made another wheel of hard cheese. I will pop this into my fridge and look forward to tasting it in 2 months.